Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and this is going to be another interview regarding tournaments. And today we have Garretz, our very own TMM member, which was the runner-up in the OLS Edition 21 that took place the last weekend. How are you doing, Garretz?
Hello, Kasmin. I'm doing fine, thanks. Thank you for the invitation for this interview.
I mean, who could
Uh,
we invite if not our players, our best players around? And of course, you are
um,
up there in the roster. Uh, Let's talk a bit about the tournament and how did you feel about the experience in the tournament. For example, what were you preparing? What decks were you expecting? Because it was a new expansion, it was of very short notice the tournament. So what were you expecting to see?
so I was expecting to see Kindred. I believe Kindred. I was thinking about the new champions. Much people would be experimenting with them. I believe Kindred, Azir, and Lissandra were the three champions that I would think every lineup would probably be using one of them. With Aphelios nerf, people wouldn't be too much on going for the maybe Talia with Aphelios too. But when I built my lineup, I was thinking on mostly these three champions. And so what I thought is Kindred is the one that I feel that have been mostly overrated. People people thought that it was better than it really turned out to be, and the decks weren't really refined. So I thought I could beat Kindred. And Lissandra, I thought she turned out to be much stronger than we thought, and I didn't think I could beat Lissandra at all. So she become like a ban for me. And Azir is the one I choose not to say to have much attention to him because I believe that the lineups that would run Azir would be more aggro lineups, and I think mostly in my lineup, the lineup that I built to beat Kindred would also beat Azir in the end. I had one deck that was wood to aggro, which is FTF, but that deck is broken, so it destroys everything. Even though it's supposed to have disadvantage against.
Right, but theory is
And
theory, practice is practice. What did you actually end up facing? Like, for example, which was the deck that you faced the most?
so let me take up here. I made an Excel sheet to gather some data over my matches. I was impressed on one champion that I didn't thought people would be running, and that people did, which was Nasus. And I didn't thought because I thought Nasus was bad, and my data had shown me he was actually bad. like I have I lost only 4 matches during the whole tournament, none to Nasus. Weirdly enough, there's an important thing that happened during the tournament, which was that I had a tied match on round 4 when I was facing Italian X. We tied for game 1, and so we decided it was one win for each player. So my Lissandra deck tied with his Nasus trash deck, and so who won the second match? We decided that the one who wins the second match would get the round, and and then I won. One of the decks that I saw way too much was Aphelios TF. Uh, I didn't think people would be going for Aphelios TF. I thought people would be going for Aphelios Zoe, maybe, but I didn't think that was where TF would go, especially with Aphelios nerf. And I faced um, a few Lee Sins too, which impressed me. I didn't think people would go back to Lee Sin.
Right, and how did the Swiss rounds go for you before you made top cut?
So it was 7 Swiss rounds, right? I won. I lost round 6, to Wadia, and in round four I had the tied match, which is, I don't know if you saw it, if you already saw it, Casmin. Have you seen the tie match uh, screen when you tie a game?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
And it's, man, it's the most beautiful screen. I wish I had that screen every game because it's so beautiful. That could be the victory screen. Yeah, yeah. I think it's amazing. I was really excited. It was a tied match. Let me explain how it happened. So I had 15 health. My opponent had a 15 attack Nasus in the board. He had one health, and I had a blighted ravine on the board. So it was like, okay, I'm going to atrocity my Nasus here and kill you. He did it. I went to Vile Feast his Nasus, going to 16 health. So the atrocity took 15 from me. I stayed with one, he stayed with one, and then Blighted Ravine took care of both of us, rendering both of us dead.
Right, that is an interesting match, and I hope people got to see that match as well. Let's look a bit at your lineup and more specifically at your first deck because people have been seeing it for a lot of time now on the screen, and it is your one true love, Shenfiora. Why do you love Shenfiora
Yeah,
so much, man?
I love Shinfiora because it embodies a way I like to play this game, which is to pass. You set up a threat, be it Shen, be it the dragon, and you press the pass button. And once your opponent has committed his mana, you just go and attack and you clear his board because you have a unit with barrier and they can't do much. And I believe Shinfiora is the deck that has like this. It has a really great time doing this kind of strategy. So in turn six, you don't have to play anything once you have the dragon and a Shen, and in turn seven too, and therefore you can keep your advantage on the board growing, growing and growing. And if your opponent never commits to a card, he can never get to the board back. And while and you keep that mana, so you have deny, you have concerted strike to, you have deny for big spells, you have concerted strike for big units. You can keep the control over the board uh, really easily. And the more control you have over the board, the more the Shenfiora deck can extract from your opponent. So once you have Citria, Shen, and the dragon, your opponent's handed like he's handed with nothing to play. Every card he plays has a big answer in your deck that you can use to beat it. Uh, I could say that only freezes maybe could be hard to like, freezes are the one thing that Shenfiora can't beat because you can't deny harsh winds. But other than that, you have the answers, and you just have to keep knowing when I mean, you pass, and you have to know when you have to attack and when you can just pass and burn like 5 mana. You play dragon on 5. No one is is crazy to play a unit, to play kindred onto your dragon. So they pass, and you pass back, and you burn their mana. Now next turn they must play kindred. Who knows? You have 9 mana to deal with that unit.
That is a beautiful interpretation of how Shenfiora does work and why it is so powerful. But let's talk a bit about your list and let's see what interesting cards you have in this list because the first thing that is a one-off in most of the people's list that we have been interviewing is that one Laurent Chevalier. And I need to ask you as well, why is it there?
So you say it's a one-off. It's not really a one-off. That's the thing you gotta understand about Laurent Chevalier. Laurent Chevalier is the fourth copy of Hiva Shaper, which is the one true champion of this deck. Yeah, like they both have 2 health. They both draw a card once they strike. Laurent Chevalier has cost one more, but he has Challenger, which is a big plus side. He can challenge Spiderlings and such things. I think he's amazing for this purpose. Like Hiva Shaper is the one card in this deck I want to have more than three, and I'm willing to play a worst version of it by using Lauren Chevalier. It keeps me with gas. It's very hard once you have four copies of Hiva Shaper to be out of cards this deck, and you have so much protection for your units, so you can keep him alive pretty easily. With Shen, he can draw you one, two, three cards. There are some cards that you draw that can be occasionally insanely good. Like if your opponent doesn't have board clears, the Silver Wing, the 4 mana 2/1 with Challenger can be really good. If you need an elusive blocker, you can have Yusari to give you another round, like just to defend against the Great Beyond. If you don't have Sharpsight, for example, uh, Genevieve can clear up, can use as counter attack. This deck used to run Genevieve at some point, so this is why I believe it's a great card. I've been liking it so far.
Another great card and the new addition to the deck is Golden Aegis. Why is it here and why 3 copies of Golden Aegis over Relentless Pursuit?
So this deck had like people were divided into some people didn't like Relentless Pursuit. I, for example, didn't like it. I in the last meta we had, I was playing Relentless, but I didn't like the card at all. I believe even though the attack token is so strong for Shinfiora, you don't have that many cards in your hand, and you don't want to be transforming your cards and your mana into the attack token. It's the other way around. You want to transform the attack token into cards and mana by by making a pass and such things. And it breaks your hand when you have so few units. On Golden Aegis, on the other hand, it's not a brick because it gives you a barrier. Like when you're on turn 6, you have 2 spell mana, okay? And you have your full mana backed up. Your opponent's going to attack you. He's playing Severe. Who knows? He's playing a deck with beefy units. You have a dragon that you don't want to play because you have that Fior or that Hiva Shaper on the board that needs to get that repost or that 4 mana barrier to stay alive. You need that unit to be kept alive. And you can't play your cards because then you're out of then you're out of mana for the barrier. Golden Edges is a card that you want to play. It's a barrier that you want to play proactively. That it's insane. It's completely insane when you play it to stop an attack. For example, you play Golden Edges, you stop their attack, and you say, "Okay, my unit has challenger. I will challenge you. I will." If like I had this example where you use Golden Edges in a Hiva Shaper, which isn't great, but you can use it, for example, in your dragon. Or on the same example, on turn 6, you have a second dragon in hand. You can use it on dragon. If they attack with Rune Renner, she dies for free. If they don't, you kill her for free. It's like it's a barrier with a single combat mostly. And against control decks, it's also the card that you need to make the pressure. You open attack them, they barely survive, and they can't play Renation, they can't play the game because you still can have a 4 mana card that gets you the attack token again. So I believe it's a really great threat. I tried this deck with 1, I tried it 2, and the more I kept trying it, the more I wanted this card.
Right. This is a nice description of why Golden Ages should perform in this list, but all in all it's done and dusted for Shenfiora, so we can move forward to the next deck, which is no surprise, it is the most creative deck that we have in this meta, and I'm sure everyone is so hyped up of seeing it every single tournament, and there is no reason anyone would like this deck nerfed or they have any hate for this deck. I'm joking, of course, because all of that is true. You have brought Fizz TF. It is a consistent deck. It is a deck that is, I think, overperforming in this current meta. So, did you bring it just because it has that high level of also understanding the game, also high level of outplay, or what was the reason for bringing this deck?
No, you were right on the first part. This deck is overperforming. It's much stronger. It beats everything. It beats things that it shouldn't beat. So I thought, okay, my opponent has a ban, and I'm going to make them use the ban on VCF because this deck beats everything. So like I faced people that were actively trying to beat to counter VCF. Italian X, for example, he had three aggro decks. His idea was to beat VCF, and he couldn't because that's how VCF goes. Like it doesn't matter if you can, if you want to, you can't. You can't. It beats. It beats the stuff it shouldn't. It's too strong.
Looking at your list though, it's a little bit creative because you have one Defray MK1. We have seen this before to have matchups better into aggro, but you have only one suit up and your version is more minion heavy in the early game. Like you have double pull shark and double zonat urchin. Why this change to the usual list?
So I made this change because if there's anything that can beat VCF are the aggro decks, and I decided then to tech. This deck is so broken that I believe I can give up a little bit on my win rate against more controlling matchups to get an edge over aggro decks. So everyone who's so like if someone is trying to beat VCF, they'll be bringing three aggro decks, and in that case, I have a deck which stacked against aggro. If they are not going to beat VCF with three aggros, for example, if that's not their idea, they're probably aiming to ban it. So it doesn't matter what I do with the list; they have to ban it.
So you didn't lose anything if they ban it, and if they are trying to counter it, it's probably not going to work. But very important, why just one copy of suit up? Why just one? Because it is so important to keep your champions alive most of the time.
Yes, I mean, I thought I had to until until I realized right now I was playing with only one. Like I know this is the list I was playing. I didn't even count. I'm not too. I don't play too much into drawing suit up to play it for 2 mana. So that's probably why I didn't missed it during the tournament, the second copy. But yeah, probably I took it out to pay to put Zaunite Urchin. This list I had it prepared for a few weeks now, so I didn't go to revise it. I just took it because I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do with the deck to beat aggro. This is the strategy I believe in, and I didn't feel the need to revise my strategy.
And did
And
this list drop any game, or were there any games that they you dropped with this list, or it just
the
overperformed like the
final,
usual?
the finals, the last game of the finals was lost to a Ledrus Dreadway combo.
Not
Ledrus into
again.
Dreadway.
Not again.
Yeah,
Not again. We
and
have
it
seen
was
so many finals being taken when leaders dread away just because of the combo and you cannot hit her.
yeah.
Alright. We have been talking about Shenfiora, we have been talking about Fistiev, which is of course a very nice deck that nobody hates. Yappa. So we're going to move forward to the last deck, which is going to be Trundle Lysandra Lidros Control. So this list has been played by many players. They had some different ratios towards the deck, some interesting techs. One thing that attracts my attention here, all out of the blue, is one Alpha Wildclaw. Why is it there?
So this list is uh, it has a name in my game. Like I normally put the lists of the decks. I normally put either the name of the deck. So Fiora Shen is Fiora Shen, 50F is 50F, or the name of the creator. And this is the list I came up with when I was talking with the TMM guys before the tournament. And I don't know if it was Colby. You know who told me that Off White Claw is the thing. You gotta put it, man. You gotta have it to punch. And I was like, okay. I'm not too fan of SI control decks. I don't play it too much, so I'm going with you guys. And I'll definitely not use it anymore. Like it wasn't bad in the tournament. Lissandra was the my worst deck. It dropped 2 games. I lost one with Fiorashen, one with FistF, and two with Lissandra. It was banned a few times too because I think people don't like too much facing SI control. I don't like too much, for example.
One
But
thing
yeah,
that is interesting in your list is you have one copy of Harsh Winds and one copy of Troll Chant. I didn't see this in the usual Lissandra list. Why one copy of Harsh Winds? Why one copy of Troll Chant?
so Hashwins, I believe, is a card that can be. It's important, but it can break out. So you gotta choose. Also, when you have one copy of Hashwins and you pass, like you can beat the attack from 2 units, your opponent will always assume you have Hashwins in your hand. So it's a card that's easy to bluff if you have it. And Trollchant is a card that's not also it's easy to bluff. I believe it's important to keep Draculon alive because when you have that guy, that frozen troll with the countdown of 4, and you have Draculon, you wanna play Draculon, you need him to stay alive to the end of the turn. So, but I'm not sure about. I mean, I'm sure about the Hashwins. I'm sure it was a good idea. It turned out to be. I'm not sure about the Trollchant. Trollchant might be in trolly in the end. It also removes spell shield, which is a really big deal for control decks. They want to have it. If I can, I mean the biggest problem I see with Roshan is the fact that Lissandra Trundle does not want to keep Trundle alive at all. If your Trundle dies, you wanna if your Trundle is at risk of dying, you want it to die so you can play second Trundle to get second pillar in hand. And this is biggest reason I see to say, okay, Charshant, not that kind, not that good of a card. You're not getting that gen unit backup.
So you are saying that you want more as many Trundles to die as possible, so you do get the Ice Pillars, and I think you want that because you wanna reach to that Watcher win con, or at least have the threat available, right?
Yeah, not only that, as if your Lissandra flips she levels on 8, it's already good enough. Good enough. Like Lissandra leveling on 8, even if you don't get that Watcher to 0 cost, it's normally already enough to beat the game because she has 4 health and tough. She's really tough to kill. She gives you a Nexus stuff, and she gives you a card and 3 mana each turn. It's not 3 mana, but it's three mana that's bound to the card. So I think once Lissandra is leveled, and I think leveling Lissandra is the big stuff here. It's the big important part. Once Lissandra is leveled, you can more easily win the game, and therefore I'd like to have played 2 Trundles during the game so that I can even level Lissandra without paying mana. So I can go Ice Pillar, and Lissandra. I don't even have to have a Lissandra on board.
And one of my curiosities would be with Lissandra. You said that she dropped some games. One of them was a tie, so I don't think we can count it as a dropped game. But what happened in the other game?
No, no, no. I was considering the tie game as a win, not a, not
Oh, it's
as
a win then.
yeah, yeah. Because in the end, okay, you can consider she lost too, because it was a match my opponent, because the tie was a win for both of us. So you can consider, I guess you could see. So if you consider the tie was a loss, then I had three dropped games with Lissandra.
And what happened in the other two?
So yeah, what happened with Lissandra was the Guardia lineup.
What was the Guardia lineup?
His lineup was made, at least that's my read, his lineup was made to beat SI control. So especially Lissandra, because the before the tournament I faced VCF with my Lissandra and I couldn't beat it. And I was like, okay, yes, I'm banning VCF. And in his lineup he had Lee Sin, he had VCF, and he had Tagon Speak. And I realize now that I made a mistake. I should have banned Tagon Speak instead of VCF. I
Why?
had better odds of beating VCF, but Lissandro dropped the two games in this matchup. I started 1-0. I started Fiorashin into the scene and I beat him. And then I went to Lissandra and I lost the two games. And the most important part is that he played uh, Tagon Speak on turn 4. And on turn 5, my Ledrus got discounted. And I played him, and his Aurelion Sol got discounted. And he played the Aurelion Sol. But the thing is, even though I high rolled and I had the Ledrus discounted, it wasn't enough to win the game. I just got rolled by because my Ledrus got discounted. But when Ledrus just got discounted, Lissandra doesn't get a trigger, so she never levels. So I can't beat him because then he has star shaping to heal back up. Then I didn't have atrocity to so and then he's already so leveled and was like, okay, nothing to do here because I have many control. I was drawing control cards and he was drawing engines and big stuff. So I was like, okay. I realized I made a mistake because he has ramp and I can never go as fast as he can with Targon Speak and ramp.
Right, so for all of you people out there, if you want a fourth deck to beat Lissandra Trundle SI specifically with the SI Splash, now you know that Targon Speak has a pretty good favorable matchup. And that not
Yeah.
only because they discount their fielder rushes and their big threats, but also, as Garretz mentioned, because if they discount your big dudes, then you cannot level Lissandra. That is very important towards your win con. Thank you,
Yeah.
Garretz, for being around. And if you had something that you would give people advice when approaching the OLS tournaments or Riot Lock in general, what advice would you give them?
I mean, guys, there's this most important advice I should give you. Do not target Feast TF. Ban that deck. You, you don't want to try to beat it. You can't. You ban it. You stay out of it, out of its way. Just let it be. Let it be. Let's wait for the TF nerf. And that's all.
So you heard it here. Don't try countering Fizz TF, just ban it and be alright with it. Thank you again, Garretz, for being with us. Congratulations for your runner-up place in OLS. And other than that, we're going to see you guys in the next interview with the next tournament.
Yeah.